What's up, guys? It's me, LumosTheromax, and today we're actually continuing the back half of a story that I told about a week and a half ago after some personal drama I had to deal with. And I'm really excited to get into this chapter because in this specific backstory of Green Lantern 2023 issue 9, we actually get a follow-up with more of the events going on with the United Planets. And a lot of these backstories focus on like one specific person, and this time, despite what's going on, despite what you saw in the thumbnail, it's actually covering the events of Jessica Cruz. And don't worry, when it comes to that thumbnail, we're going to come right back to that bad boy. So, if you want to see some Larfleeze action, sit back, like, and subscribe. Consider becoming a member down low, and also consider just commenting whatever you feel about what's going on inside this specific backstory, because it's really interesting. And of course, you already know, if the homie Larfleeze shows up, it's gonna be a classic, okay? That's just how it goes with that man. So, with no further ado, let's get into it, Lanterns. Starting off in this backstory, we have quite an interesting situation pop up. We pull up immediately at Oa, the capital of the United Planets. And for those who aren't aware or actively reading a lot of this action, the United Planets is basically like the Galactic Senate of DC currently, since all the Guardians of the Universe were killed. So now basically democracy has risen up in its place, and all the factions of the universe are running everything. And there's a small council of like total douchebags who basically run the Green Lantern Corps now, as well as the whole universe. And they're called like the United Planets Goons, essentially. But Jessica Cruz finds herself on Oa, and in a very frustrating situation. There's all sorts of lanterns who are essentially have their constructs and guns, all sorts of things pointed at her, and they're all declaring that Jessica Cruz has betrayed them, that she has actually committed treason against the United Planets as a lantern. And of course, Jessica Cruz, as usual, is just so excited about this adventure. Is just so excited about this action, because despite how bad things look, she feels like she has things under control. Another thing people may not know a lot about Jessica Cruz is she's a person whose entire life has been foundationally built around fear, which is an odd thing for a Green Lantern to have their lives based around. I mean, Jessica Cruz is a Green Lantern and originally became a Green Lantern, so shouldn't she be more will-driven, right? Well, due to the way power rings work, it's less about not having any fear and more about overcoming fear. And the larger the fear, the greater the will it's required to overcome. So Cruz, at random moments, can be wildly powerful in terms of what she offers. And Jessica Cruz is going to need to utilize every single bit of that in order to survive this wonderful encounter. It appears that Jessica got grabbed and brought in to a man called Lord Premier Tharos. And Lord Premier Tharos is actually the 100% leader of the United Planets in the current moment. And according to Jessica, clearly his vibe has not been uncontroversial. This guy's making some pretty rough, some pretty questionable decisions. You know, it's so funny. I want to make a whole video on this down the way, but everybody was so quick to judge the Guardians of the Universe, and look how quickly everybody else who tried to step up into that role, look how quickly this shit rolls downhill, like here. And this is a prime example. I'm going to read off verbatim what this guy says to Jessica Cruz. And I quote, "I could remand you to a gulag and bury your trial indefinitely. Everyone in this room is loyal to me, and no one would say a word if I did so. And what about you? Have you been loyal to me?" Like, this is the kind of scum you're working with. This really does sound like somebody who's from Star Wars on the Galactic Senate, man. This is some rough stuff. And Jessica agrees, as she still has all these lanterns pointed around her with all these different constructs. She's been practicing for this moment, apparently. This situation is something that clearly she's been preparing for. And situations like this are things that she finds herself in all the time, unironically. Misconceptions and things along those lines, classic Jessica Cruz storyline. So she reaches out to everyone present and she's like, "Look, I know how this looks. It's not as bad as it actually looks, but what kind of idiot would I be to betray you, Lord Premier Tharos? I mean, come on." And there's this other lantern behind them, someone we don't recognize, some sort of metal lantern called Lantern Endicott. And they say, "Yeah, everyone knows you can't trust Earth lanterns. Sector 2841 lanterns, they're total garbage. They're all poison. You can't trust them." And just Cruz looks back and she's like, yeah, and I knew I could trust you to be such a snitch. And God, you actual kiss ass. Yo, Jessica Cruz comedy in this is like god tier. Whoever's writing the comedy in this is definitely on point, man. They know how to write how people interact with one another. However, this Premier Lord Tharos basically looks towards Lantern Endicott and tells them, hey, well, why don't you give your testimony since you clearly have a strong opinion as to what happened. And Lantern Endicott tells them, okay, so it was me and Lantern Cruz over there who were assigned a secret mission to go and blow up the central power battery for the Orange Lantern Corps. Now, just reaching upon that idea, yo, they sent 2 fucking lanterns to go destroy Larfleeze's central power battery. It doesn't even make sense Larfleeze has a central power battery, as he never has, unless they literally mean just like the battery he carries around, like his central power battery. I guess that'd be the only way to look at it. But if you look here, whenever they remember the situation, all rings are equipped with a 3D holographic projection feature that allows them to basically review memories or anything that was around the ring. And this is exactly what occurs here. And this battery, this orange battery that they're trying to destroy, is massive. It's huge. It looks like the green central power battery, unironically. And their goal was to show up with a detonation charge with intent to blow up the central power battery. Which, keep in mind, shouldn't stop Larfleeze under any circumstance, because Larfleeze is a live battery as of the new 52 version. But hey, I mean, let's not get too hard into the memes over here. So they set this charge on it, and what Jessica Cruz essentially says is that, whenever we set the charge and it began to detonate, Jessica Cruz turned and absorbed the explosion. Okay, now I want you guys to consider how insane this is. Okay, any orange central power battery is going to be jacked because the orange power into itself, greed, is wildly violent, wildly dangerous. Nobody likes to fuck with that shit, okay? She absorbed a ton of the explosion from an orange central power battery. That is absolutely jacked scaling for Jessica Cruz. Low-key wild. So, like, upon seeing everything and upon reviewing the events that had happened, this Lord Premier Tharos is like, hey, so, like, whenever I give an order, that shit is, like, law. You betrayed me and the law. So, I'm going to blame Jessica Cruz, since she screwed this up, as joining the Renegade Green Lanterns, who are actively sabotaging all the great work the United Planets are doing. Do you deny these accusations? And, of course, clearly we're on, like, some straight-up schizo shit. It's, like, one example of her fucking up, and they're like, screw it. But they're at least giving her a chance to speak, so I'm surprised we even made it here with the United Planets. But the entire time this is going on, Jessica Cruz is also talking about her life and how difficult things were before. In terms of how much of a dumpster fire it was, man. It was a dumpster fire before she got powers, and now it's a dumpster fire when she had, just with powers, which is pretty ironic. But this is when Jessica Cruz kind of puts her own personal flair on things. And this is kind of what makes Jessica really popular amongst a bunch of the fans, is because sometimes she'll just snap and do really off-the-wall shit. And it appears that we're definitely going back to a point in time with writing with her where that's going to be the case. Because here, she says, oh, okay, Lantern letdown over here. Clearly what she didn't show you with that projection was that she totally placed the bomb onto the central power battery like a rookie. She put it near the base, where if it detonated, it would have just cracked really bad. And all it would have done is it would have leaked into the universe like an infinite greed oil spill, ruining the universe. So I basically just saved everyone from that kind of fate. Or worse yet, the central power battery could have exploded, and that could have been it for that entire, like, space sector. So I snuffed the explosion. I actually was here to help you. Maybe you should get better training to amateur lantern over here. And while she says that, she kind of thinks back and she's like, man, I've really got to make up for some shit I've done in the past. A while back, I was a yellow lantern underneath Sinestro, but we don't talk about that. And Premier Tharos kind of thinks about what she's saying, thinking to himself, like, okay, so regardless of what's going on, this little henchman says, yo, we sent a squad afterwards who successfully destroyed the orange power battery and collected the creature known as Larfleeze and put him in a science cell. Yo, what do you mean you just collected Larfleeze? How is that even a thing? Okay, so like these random United Planets lanterns are genuinely jacked. Because I'm telling you right now, Jessica Cruz is not rolling up and fighting Larfleeze. I don't know in the modern day if Hal Jordan could roll up and fight Larfleeze still. Like Larfleeze is genuinely that jacked of a guy. The last time our heroes came across him, it took the entire Green Lantern Corps, the entire Yellow Lantern Corps, White Lantern Kyle Rayner, Hal Jordan, Ganthet, Sade, and like 3 other dudes in order to just hold off Larfleeze. And Larfleeze got bored of the fight and left. Okay? That's how that went. So like, yo, if 2 of these guys are rolling up and styling on him, that's crazy. And it makes sense because 2 of these guys rolled up on Hal Jordan, and one of them, I think, cleaned Hal Jordan very safely. So these new lanterns are genuinely jacked. But despite how jacked they are, it appears that Jessica Cruz has found unique ways to kind of dance around them and prove that she's still a lantern worth keeping around, despite the powers of a lot of these guys. But in the middle of this, Lantern Endicott says, bro, this is a bunch of bullshit. There's no way you could possibly prove that. I would never place a bomb like that. But immediately, it's Jessica's ring that goes off. And this is important because when her ring goes off, it's actually a reference back to the Hal Jordan, or not the Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, the Green Lantern's Rebirth run, which ran parallel to the Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, where her ring says Jaybird, okay? So in the Green Lantern solo run, we found out that her ring was actually the ring of Volthoom. And it had one of the older AIs inside of her ring. And it had more personality than any of the other rings, which was really interesting, really fascinating. And this is a prime example of something similar like that happening. We may be going back to Jessica Cruz having one of the old rings of Volthoom, which included time travel and all sorts of hacks. Awesome ideas. Great idea to implement this here. I'm super jacked about that. But as her ring warns her, Jaybird up top. Immediately, she looks up top, claiming there's no way she'll ever be a normal lantern like any of the other lanterns that exist. Because her abilities come from anxiety. Moments like this where she's pressured. She looks up to notice a lantern with the mask on, with a construct gun aiming at Premier Tharos. And immediately she creates constructs all around Premier Tharos to make sure he's okay. Recognizing that because she's so anxious, as I said earlier, she's not like other lanterns who gain their power from the ability to just overcome great fear. She's just far more anxious than any of those guys. And as she wraps up Premier Tharos, she immediately throws a bunch of axes up towards the assassin. This assassin who, assumedly, is in that rogue group of Green Lanterns who were rebelling against the United Planets that Premier Tharos had said earlier. But Jessica, she's not her fear, and scares off whoever this person is, asking them that exact question, "Who are you?" to this unknown lantern. But the assassin immediately leaves, leaving them all alone. The lanterns who are pointing all their constructs and weaponry at Jessica immediately turn to go and face this cowardly assassin. But before Lantern Cruz could, Premier Tharos says, "You are to come to me now." And she finds herself in kind of an interesting situation, because she surprised Lord Premier Tharos twice today with what she said. And in one of those times, she managed to actually save his life. He didn't have time to sit around while assassins were running through the Green Lantern Corps, his Lantern Corps, and question them all 1v1. So he basically said, "Enough of the bullshit, where do you stand?" And Jessica Cruz takes just a second to sit back and think about that as she kneels, saying, "I've spent a lot of time in this world and I've learned a lot of things, but I don't like lawlessness. It almost ruined my life, and the Guardians almost let it ruin the universe. But I know that you won't. You're better than that, Lord Premier Tharos. I stand with you, and that's my covenant. That's my word to you." And Lord Premier Tharos, man, he gets excited. Glory be, let's do this thing. It's about time an Earth Lantern finally saw the light. It finally saw that we're here to make things happen. But I warn you, I'm going to elect you to my personal Lantern Council. And if there is any doubt of loyalty amongst you from this point on, I won't be dragging you back here. I'll be dragging you to a place no one will know, because you'll just disappear and no one will ever hear from you again. However, as Cruz steps away, she steps into what looks like a locker room, and there's several other lanterns nearby, all hyping them up. wow, dude, I couldn't believe you got to join his Premier Lantern Corps, man. That's wild. Lord Premier Tharos is so cool. And this whole time, she's just kind of playing it off with these other guys. Yeah, oh, yeah, sure, it's cool. But she's thinking to herself. And what she's thinking is, even though I have my problems, even though I have my issues, there's some things I can do that Hal, John, or even Guy can't do. I'm kind of unique in a way because I'm the last person that anybody would be able to expect is basically an undercover agent. And she pulls up her hand, and there's some sort of communication device she's created as a construct. And she reaches out to someone, saying, "Yo, Joe Moline, this is Jaybird. He totally bought it. I'm in." And now, for those who had read the prior story, the major story attached to this, Joe Moline has actually been putting together that Lantern rebellious faction against Lord Premier Tharos. A while back with Kyle Rayner, she had been telling him that she thought that the Lantern Corps were all being eliminated by the United Planets, and clearly this is that coming to fruition. So there has been some absolutely wild stuff going on this, especially for like a backstory of all things. I'm so impressed. Now, I think the coolest thing so far that we genuinely got is the stuff with Larfleeze. Yo, this is genuinely terrifying, this stuff with Larfleeze. They're playing these guys up to be massive villains. Or maybe it's just a case of these guys not really caring about Larfleeze. Either way you look at it, power scaling wise, these new lanterns are absolutely jacked. And it's going to be a rough fight for a lot of them. The big tiers, whoever they are going to be awesome fights for even the big tier lanterns like Hal Jordan, Sinestro, and like all these figures. Especially while like the central power battery is jacking with like the emotional spectrum, or someone is jacking with the emotional spectrum, allowing characters to get all sorts of powers they never have before. And that's something that makes me wonder, tying everything back together with Larfleeze. I wonder if maybe that's the reason they could get Larfleeze, is everyone else has been affected by the emotional spectrum being nerfed or weakened or changed. Larfleeze at his core has always been a being of raw greed, of raw gluttony. And if the emotional spectrum is changing, kind of like Sinestro whenever he changed from orange to red, can Larfleeze feel other emotions in the same capacity that he can greed? I don't think so. Maybe that's how he could be captured. Maybe that's why he had to build a central power battery. Who knows? The mysteries with Larfleeze always tend to go deep. But tell me what you think down low, Lanterns. What did you think of the interactions of the United Planets Lanterns with Larfleeze, Jessica Cruz, or even some of these other people? Be sure to tell me down low, because man, this run is only gonna get crazier. And I guess with no further ado, we'll catch you next time, Lanterns. Stay tuned. Later.
Corrupting and creating events that affect the entire verse was the only way she theorized to decimate her source wall curse, and so she whispered madness to her child, the Anti-Monitor, driving him towards his revenge on his brother, the Monitor. A crisis on infant Earths is what he decided to grant, but her children were